Hi, I'm Mauricio Schiller and you're listening to The Schillering Hub, a podcast gathering hospitality professionals from around the world to talk about what hospitality is and what it isn't, and their lives, the innovations, and the ideas that set some businesses apart and others not. We also talk about the future, the trends, and recently we embarked on a journey to search for happiness in hospitality. What makes hospitality a happy place? What are the hurdles that block happiness from happening? And what can we do to overcome them? I invite you to be part of this journey. We make this for you, so I hope you enjoy it.
The efforts, the genuine connection that you have with people. And what we fail to realize very often in hospitality is when we don't have those SOPs, when those things aren't in place, it actually limits our ability to engage with our guests, connect, in the right way, to actually connect with them. Because in the end, hospitality is that genuine connection between me and you. Need first are kind of those branding SOPs about who are we? What type of service do we offer, right? If I have one person that has super formal, luxury style service experience, and I tell them, hey, go offer great service, they're going to deliver that version of service. But if I have someone that's, very limited service, economy service, oriented, and I say to them, go offer great service, they're going to go deliver that version of service. So to me, the place that I like to start is understanding what's the culture of the organization. Who are you? What do you want to be?
I'm pleased to have Adam Tuttle from WIP in the show today. WIP is a standards management software for hotels. Adam has spent his life working from simple hotels to luxury brands, giving him a bird's eye view of how the training and the development of the SOPs should happen in our industry. In today's episode, we will learn the importance of SOPs in the hospitality industry, how to start writing your SOPs, what to do to make it simple to use and to check compliance, and how technology can assist you in making SOPs a useful tool for your teams. It was such a fun chat full of insights and ideas, so sit down, relax, and learn something new with Schillering today. Hey, you lovely people, and welcome to another episode of the Schillering Hub podcast talking hospitality. Gandhi once said, live as you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever. Our learning journey today takes us to the standards, the standardized operating procedures, the SOPs. I have a question for you. Do you work in a hotel? Do you know where your standards are right now? Answer loud, just for the whole metro to answer that. Or do you even know them? Or are they up to date? These are some questions that really bother some people when you ask them, but it's really important if you want to properly onboard your staff. So today we are going to learn more about SOPs, about standards, and for this I brought in a specialist to teach us more, Adam Tuttle from Yippee. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Mauricio. I'm super excited to be here. And talk about the most exciting thing on the planet, which is standards. You might not think so, but I think so.
They are exciting, actually, because there is a whole process in thinking and imagining how not only the staff will learn that, but how they will perform and how your guests will feel when everything is up on the right spot, everything is working as smooth as possible. So it is exciting. I love SOPs. I know that you love SOPs, and we're going to learn a lot with you today, Adam. But before that, in our community, humans come first. So Adam, introduce yourself, please.
It's been a fun journey in hospitality for me. So I think at the core of everything that I do, I've always considered myself, first and foremost, a hotelier. I care about the hospitality community and the industry as a whole. It's been something that I have been wanting to be a part of since, I'm not even kidding, I was a 10-year-old and had a midlife crisis of what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to be? And that left me discovering that the world of hospitality is truly where I belonged. And I feel really fortunate that I found that at a young age. But I knew that early into my life, so I ended up going and attending UNLV and went to attend hotel school there. From there, I started and worked through college at a La Quinta Inn in Swedes. For those that don't have a La Quinta in your area, it's a very small economy brand style hotel. The brand's not small, but the hotels are typically smaller, very, very economy focused, and loved that. And then from there, I made the natural transition into hyper luxury by going with and starting with Four Seasons, right? I mean, that just makes all the sense in the world. And my career with Four Seasons took me from Vegas to DC to Orlando, back to Las Vegas, and on that journey, I had this internal passion that, you know, I really wanted to branch out on my own in the hospitality world and get to know more brands, get to know more operations. And so I actually took the experiences that I had and gained from my tenure with Four Seasons and started a consulting company that helped hotels not only identify their service standards, their brand expectations, but also how do they deliver it? How do you come across and make sure that not only are you doing what they're asked of you, but you're doing it in the right spirit and the right emotion? And along that journey through that consulting time is when I found that hotels really lacked either a strong SOP presence, or, you know, that they were outdated or irrelevant to their industry or to their operation, I should say. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay. So I kind of found a niche within hospitality of really establishing training on SOPs. And then from there was this idea of saying, gosh, how do we make this easier? Because this is tough. Like, this is hard work and it's difficult. And you end up having one champion that kind of spearheads it, and then they leave, and then nobody wants to do it because it's hard. And I said, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do that. And that's when we decided, hey, that, you know, the answer to this is digitizing this process and making it simple for everyone. And yeah, started Yippee. And now it's been a journey of excellence, of helping organizations really understand, adapt, and adopt their SOPs and standards. There's the big next need. And among all of that, a family and a bunch of moves and a dog and all the fun stuff.
Ah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool to get from that 10-year-old midlife crisis to actually, but to live that whole life into hospitality and understand the pain points, right? Understanding that from a more modest type of property to go to luxury, and then seeing that all of them there's the need for standards, there's a need for procedures in place so they can both work both ways, right?
Yes, and I think to pull on that, I mean, and you started it really well actually by saying, you know, we care about people first. You know, when you think of hospitality, you think, gosh, you know, the good, the kind, the good-hearted, the efforts, the genuine connection that you have with people. And what we fail to realize very often in hospitality is when we don't have those SOPs, when those things aren't in place, it actually limits our ability to engage with our guests, connect, you know, in the right way, to actually connect with them. Because in the end, hospitality is that genuine connection between me and you. That's what it is. And how do we make sure that connection is delivered in the right way, is as genuine as it needs to be, you know, formatted, packaged, all of those good things. And what my journeys have taught me across, you know, this whole, you know, variety of jobs and working with so many different hotels and brands, is that really when it comes down to it, people want to do good. People want to do their best, and they need a little direction. They need guidance to know what I like to say. They need to know what success looks like, sounds like, feels like, so they can do it consistently.
Awesome answer. Love that. I'll copy that one. Adam, so let's start educating. Let's get straight to it and educate our audience here on the SOPs, really, and understand how to actually build some SOPs that will be used by the staff and it will be fun to build as well. I want to hear how you do that, how you manage to create that fun side of building SOPs, because it's definitely needed. So let's start with very simple, yeah? Like, what are the essentials that the standards of every hotel need?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question. I think that when we think SOPs, the problem with SOPs is you can go crazy with them. Like, you can define everything. And the idea that the place to start is think big, right? Think really big SOPs, really wide. I think when people think, oh gosh, what SOPs do I need? I need a check-in SOP. I need a checkout SOP. I need a room cleaning SOP. Okay, those are great. And are they essential? Yes. However, what you need first are kind of those branding SOPs about who are we? What type of service do we offer, right? If I have one person that has super formal, luxury style service experience, and I tell them, hey, go offer great service, they're going to deliver that version of service. But if I have someone that's, very limited service, economy service, oriented, and I say to them, go offer great service, they're going to go deliver that version of service. So to me, the place that I like to start is understanding what's the culture of the organization. Who are you? What do you want to be? When your guest walks away from an interaction with any member of your staff, and I literally mean anyone. This could be someone in your breakfast. This could be someone at the front desk. Maybe you have a shuttle team. Maybe you have a chauffeur, whatever it may be. What's that experience? What should that experience be from a broad perspective? And then the next place to start is to identify that. What are those, broader understanding and those broad senses of standards and SOPs? And then we dig into our core essential SOPs. And to me, those core essential SOPs, again, are not your check-in, check-out, which, I think that those are like round two, but they're your health stuff, your safety stuff. They're your cash handling policies. They're the things that make a lot of sense, that put you in the best protection possible and gets the critical information shared. Then from there, we move on to what are the essential touch points of your operation. When I mean essential, I'm talking, if you run a hotel, your housekeeping, that's essential, right? What does your vacant arrival SOP look like? What does your stayover SOP look like? What does, your corridor, hallway, guest area look like? It's so easy to define this. And when you dig into it, it's the opportunity to really get specific, right? Of what is our expectation. So that when someone walks in, brand new to our organization, they can look at this SOP, they can digest it, and they can say, okay, I know how to be successful here. I know what I need to do in order to deliver the right version of the right product, right? And so we want to make sure that happens. And then you walk that through. And I think the best place is then just to follow that guest journey, right? And, okay, start with your arrival process. Is that with a valet or door, bell, front desk? And the next thing that I say when we do this is, rather than try to think of the whole process, if you do formal audits, secret shops and things like that with like accolade organizations, oftentimes they'll do an arrival process. So what you'll get is an SOP that comes from valet all the way through checking in, right? Walking into the guest room. That is really helpful when you're looking at guest story journeys. That's great. But we're talking SOP, we're talking bite-sized experiences, right? So this is where we start with those essentials by saying, what is the check-in at the front desk? What is the arrival from the doorman's job? What is the arrival from the bellman's job? What is the arrival from the valet job? And then obviously housekeeping as well. But you segment those into very small, what I call bite-sized SOPs. Mm-hmm. So you can find very well what success in each one of those actions look like, right? If you're at a restaurant, it's not, here's our dinner service SOP. No. Here's our table greeting SOP. Here's the SOP on taking an order, on presenting the food. Here's the SOP on wine service. Each one of those segments become a digestible SOP. So I know that's a broad question. Start big. Define your company SOPs, right? Your interaction. Who are you? What does your service quality look like? Sound like, feel like? Go from there. Get your big essentials, your guest information handling, your credit card handling, and then get detailed into the operational flow.
I have a question to you on that discovery journey, right? Because what I've been noticing is that, like, we have some hotels, normally the newer ones, that have that understanding of why they are there, why they created the brand. So they come up with a concept and they build up on the concept. But lots of the independent brands, mostly a little bit older than 10 years, let's say, they start by looking at the property, what I can serve, and the why is not even there, really, right? Like, there is, like, we have what we do, we have how we do, but the why is a little bit, and it's hard for, like, now in the conversation that we have, it's quite hard for owners and general managers to really understand why must have a why. So how do you get into that journey? How do you start a conversation? So to get our audience here to understand, like, all right, yeah, I should be thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, something that I've adopted in my practice, in my consulting business, is whenever we write an SOP, at the top of that SOP, we write why. Why are we doing this? Right? Okay, this is a check-in SOP. Great. The idea of the check-in SOP, there's a couple things here. Obviously, we want to secure financial payment. We want to make sure that we're checking in the right guest, right? But more importantly, we're creating a sense of arrival. We're creating a sense of place. We're creating and establishing a relationship with the guest. And how does that experience deliver within your brand concept, right? Like, how it can't just be a checklist, right? And so part of those SOP, part of that creation is to think, okay, what are not just the technical components or the objective components that are here? What are some of these subjective components that need to be in here? And I actually really like that we're seeing an adoption of this. You can see that with companies like LQA. I think they've always been really good at adopting and saying, hey, here's an emotional component to this check-in. And you're even seeing it this year in Forbes. They just released that where they're saying, hey, how did you feel as you went through this whole process as like an actual criteria of the check-in? And I think brands need to really look at that. I think they need to just take a step back and say, what's our experience? And I think it's okay that you ponder on that a little bit. You don't need to have the answer off the top of your head. You do need to be able to have an answer. I think that you need to be able to walk through that. And as you are a more established brand, and as you're going through that could all sometimes hit like a ton of bricks. Like, oh my gosh, we've only been thinking about this from a technical standpoint. What are some of those softer, the why pieces, right? Simon Sinek says, start with why. That whole book. Yeah, it's such a good book. Like, shameless plug for Simon here. Like, if you haven't read Start With Why, what are you doing? Go read the book. Start there. And you have to understand, gosh, like, how do we really understand what the emotional impact from this interaction needs to be?
That's awesome. And so, like, if we now understand, like, okay, so you managed to get the team behind it and understanding the process, and you build that SOPs, how can you get that to not be just a paperwork that end up being someone's draw, but actually being something useful for the teams and for the managers?
Yeah. SOPs typically are built to die. They're built because something happens, and you have to check the SOP, and then you go, oh my gosh, this SOP is ancient. We need to update our SOPs. And then you go there, and then they live in this old dusty binder, right? That you crack open every once in a while whenever there's some legal issue or guest, new general manager walks in, how's our SOPs? And they're terrible, right? The idea to me is that SOPs need to be living documents. They need to be things that are not just in our binder of, let's go grab that. And honestly, we kind of set ourselves up for failure here by printing them, putting them in this binder, and it kind of feels like we're chiseling them into rock, right? Like, here's the 10 commandments, like, go forth and hear this forever. Like, that's not the idea of your SOPs, right? Your SOPs need to be living documents. And to get to the point that you're saying is they need to be things that you're using not only to train off of, but there also need to be things that you coach off of, that you are giving guidance, direction from. So when I think of a really effective leader in hospitality, I'm thinking of a leader that there's a feedback model called SBI. So it stands for situation, behavior. And it's when you can identify with a person like, hey, in this situation, right, during your check-in with Mr. Tuttle, I watched you do this. I watched you use his name, or I didn't hear you use his name, either or. And then we get to the why, right? Like we were saying, is the impact. And gosh, like, this is so important that you do this. Or, wow, that act alone, like, I know that I heard you use the guest name. I just want to reinforce to you how impactful that creates. It creates a great, establishes a great relationship with you and the guest. It helps the guest feel respected. It helps them feel this. But what you're doing here is you're using the points of that SOP to provide coaching, feedback, guidance so that people that are not only new to the organization, but are veterans in the organization can feel like they've, and I don't want this to sound bad, but they've assimilated well and they're being successful. Everyone wants to know that they're doing well. Everyone wants to feel successful. And I think that SOPs are the document that we should compare everything to. And as you change those operations, as you update things, say, hey, we now take tap to pay. That needs to go into the SOP, right? As you maybe say, gosh, we're moving toward mobile keys. That needs to go into your SOP. And they become these living documents that aren't just your relics.
Sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the show and if you're learning something new today, please consider following the show, subscribe to our channel, or leave us a review. It helps us to help more people through the podcast, and it would mean the world to us. Thank you for listening, and we're back on the chat. Wow. Yeah, that's really, really cool to inspire people in that constant form, getting them to get feedback, to give you feedback, to get in that constant training. Because we are always updating something. In the end of the day, there is always something that someone thought that a better way of performing, a better way of asking a question, and having that as a lived document is a great way to keep that updated. But what are the biggest mistakes that the business make when they implement the SOPs that you see?
The biggest mistake you will make, will make, is by rolling out your holy Bible of SOPs, of just being like, this is fact, right? Or this is holy, this is saint, sacred, right? That's not what your SOPs are. Your SOPs are your attempts. They are your instructions to a successful guest experience. They are not a weapon. They're not, I think the biggest thing that I see is when people adopt SOPs, they immediately weaponize them. They immediately turn them on their staff and say, if you don't do this, I'm writing you up. I'm firing you. Instead, when you adopt new SOPs and you change your culture to a culture of accountability, which means a culture of growth, which means a culture of expansion, which means a culture of success. Accountability is all of those things. It has to start with an accountability of excellence, of performance, of doing things well. When we identify what people are doing well, and we can say, you are doing this, look at how good you're doing here. These SOPs are merely a reflection of who we are and how we should be doing them. And they should be built off of how you are doing things. They shouldn't be this whole cultural shift. You shouldn't be like, okay, well, we're a small boutique hotel and all of a sudden we're operating like an Amman. Hang on. That might not be the right vibe for you, or it might be different, right? And so you have to roll these out and say, this is a reflection of what we currently do. There's some aspirational items in here of what we'd like to do. I call that the difference between reality and this inspiration, right? Gosh, it would be idealistic to be here, but realistically we're here, and not weaponize those, and help your staff understand that if there is a change in direction of what's currently being done, if there are any alternative processes or additional processes, that they help and they understand, and you help deliver that with the vision of why you're making those changes. But to answer the question directly, which unfortunately I ramble very soon, so sorry, which is just roll them out with a sense of positivity and help the team know that this is how you're going to help them feel successful in their role, and it's not a weapon.
Yeah, I have a sense that when you're saying that, basically to change their mindset that the SOPs is just something that you must to have for legal reasons, or to get your staff compliant, or you're going to write down, or you're going to suspend them, fire them. And there is a whole process of cultural change inside the company as well, right? To understand what you're doing things, right?
Yeah, and if I can jump back on there, you have to understand that, I know that you understand that very often when you try to roll out SOPs, the first thing that you get interrupted with is whoa, I've been doing this for 10 years. Don't come in and tell me how to do my job. You're like, I'm not telling you how to do your job. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to capture how you do your job so that we can consistently help others do your job. But I also do want to make sure that we have our ability to kind of course correct. That I know that you've been doing this for 10 years, and I want to make sure that, we're continuing to do that. But at the same time, how do I make sure that the next person can be successful in there? And how do I make sure that over those 10 years, maybe you haven't learned some shortcuts? Because let's be honest, over 10 years, you've learned some shortcuts and you've learned how to do this. And so I think that there's that sense of like, this is me capturing how you do so that we don't lose, because the hospitality industry, I say, is a very oral history industry. We like to share how to do things through stories or through person-to-person training, not through here's a checklist and go through it and make sure everything's right. It's more of like, okay, you're going to go with this person and they're going to show you how to do it. And gosh, we hope that you got everything and you didn't miss anything, right? And so that SOP really is that adoption of that.
Great. Like we even here with one of our family hotels here in the casino now, we are building our SOPs, and what we did was just to send an email out to every department that's involved on that SOP and invite them for a meeting so we can build that together with the staff knowledge. I get them involved from the beginning so they get curious at least on what's going to come out of that meeting. But in the end of the day, I got some people that just said like, no, I'm not interested.
Okay, great. But then when they see it and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the SOPs almost legitimately become part of the brick and mortar that build the building, right? Because it's just important.
And like, so when we get all these documents, so now we have the document with us, it's easier to ask. How can we use technology to make more accessible though?
I mean, that's why we built Yippee, for example. But you don't have to adopt, not everyone's ready for super advanced technology stuff. The idea is get them out of your printed binder. Like get them out, get them into a Word document, get them into some way that they live on a computer so that they can be shared, so that they can grow, they can be evolved, right? And that as you expand in your brand, you can forward those and do that. But I think that as we look to the future and we look at, gosh, how do I help us evolve with technology? I think that, in order to do that, you have to do the legwork of understanding, gosh, like what is it that we do? and then being able to plug those into the various technologies, right? So like us at Yippee, like that's really what we do. But there's other organizations that you need to have some of these standards in a way that so that you can use it, right? We're talking like ticketing software. If you're going to operate with like Unifocus or Amadeus or anything like that, you're going to need to have these standards of this is what a clean room, this is how this piece of equipment should function, so that I can measure that it's not functioning right, and I can put in a ticket and it can go. And so I think that as hotels learn to adopt this technology, they'll find that not only can they start using the SOPs, like I was saying, as these living documents, and start using in their daily coaching and their daily, not just yearly, quarterly, whatever, their daily lifestyle, they'll find that not only are they more effective in their leadership, but they'll also find that their staff is happier, that they're getting better feedback, that they're getting more targeted understanding of how they can learn and grow.
Well, now you said about the daily coaching, and just clicked here because you spoke before in the introduction that you were a consultant working with training hotels, and then that's how you decide like, wow, I need to do something better with the SOPs, right?
Yeah.
So with your experience that training staff and also building SOPs, what's the best way to train new staff or former staff, or the staff, not the former staff, but the staff themselves on the new SOPs, right? How do you train them on that?
So first of all, they need to know that there's SOPs. They need to be informed of that. I think the best way to do that is distribute those SOPs as broadly as you can. And by broadly, I mean, hey, here's the digital copy. Here's the access to the digital copy. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes organizations don't want to say, hey, gosh, here's our editable PDF. Like, here's access to the standard. We've printed them. We've given you access to them in our internal intranet, or maybe you have a something like that. And then you get this opportunity to say, gosh, here they are. And then every day you train. Every single day you roll out a piece and you say, hey, in your stand-up, in your lineup, today, we're going to talk about our new SOP for check-in, or we're going to talk about our new SOP for, offering dessert if you're in the restaurant, right? Or this is what it is. And we're going to train the 2 to 3. Not we're not going to go through the whole thing. 2 to 3 pieces of that SOP, and you're just going to kind of mark all, making sure that you've talked about every single thing. And then that way, again, it's daily. This isn't something like you are running an organization that needs to stand the test of time. In order to do that, you have to talk about it daily. Stand up to the place to do it.
And look, when you're talking to hotels that are struggling with the use of the SOPs, like, are they open about that? And what's the biggest challenge that they face?
Say that again. When hotels are opening the SOPs.
Yeah, like when you are speaking to hotels, right? And you want to offer your services, like to help them with their SOPs, but they probably facing some challenges to implement them, right? And what's the biggest challenge that they face that you've seen?
When we talk about hotels adopting SOPs, it really comes into, one, there's an automatic fear of SOPs. Just the word SOP makes people freak out. It's okay. So that's a huge hurdle. The second is just oftentimes of knowing where to start. Like hotels it's a huge lift. SOPs are a huge lift and they can't be taken lightly, but they're not as big as they think they are, right? They don't have to be perfect. That's the enemy to done, right? Perfect is the enemy to done. So just do it. Throw out the first version of those SOPs, get the staff involved and start that process. When I'm working with hotels, they have this great idea of like, gosh, we're going to do this. It's going to be amazing. Okay, it's going to take a little while. And if we're going to do it right, we need a lot of input. And a lot of times, I think the biggest challenge for me was I would talk with hotels and they would want me to write their SOPs. Just give us the essential one, or give us the ones that are like, hang on, here's a check-in, but this is how you do it over in like Macau. Great. It's got to be this process of really kind of a mirror, right, where you're looking at yourself and saying, okay. I like to actually have referred to it as like it's a self-portrait, right? Where you're looking at yourself and you're drawing it. What does that need to be? And giving yourself the time to do it. And that's been the biggest challenge for.
Yeah, it's. I love the way that you said that it must be a mirror, something that reflects to your procedures, not something that you are, using ChatGPT to build up and say that expect that your staff will just comply to it, right?
Yeah, Adam. Otherwise, just end up with stuff.
Adam, please, if you could pitch Yippee in 60 seconds.
Easy. Here we go. So the idea with Yippee is that we want to we've created a standards library for people that they can import all of their standards. When we think standards, we think just check-ins, check-out. And what we sometimes fail to realize is the complexity of the source of standards, right? For legal requirements, health code expectations. Sometimes you have branding expectation, accolade expectations. And what Yippee does is it allows you to have one digital library where you can manage and store all of those expectations. You can update those in one singular location. And then what we do is we've created what we call workflows, or essentially SOPs of here's the check-in, here's the checkout at the front desk. And we build dashboards based off of the responsibility of the leaders, where they can show their SOPs, but more importantly, they can inspect the SOPs. They can say, gosh, I'm just going to stop in, I'm going to listen to a check-in, and I'll watch a arrival with the bell department. And then they're able to make observations of, gosh, you did this great, put notes, take pictures, all this stuff. But then the really important part is it goes to the data that's collected, feeds reports that tell you, how's your entire organization doing? How's this team doing? How's this one person doing on all of their standards? So you can pinpoint exactly, where do I need to focus? Where do I need to give praise? What are the things that we need to do better? And so Yippee is kind of that self-contained. It's everything we wanted it to be. It's a house for standards. It's a way to distribute and set expectations and inspect the expectations. And then more importantly, at the end, it's a way to do something with that information and data so you can drive change into your organization.
Awesome. I hope that Yippee is very successful. I know that you're preparing to the high-tech features. Yeah, that's cool. And let's try to, we are getting to the end here, but let's try to foresee a little bit the future of business, the future of hospitality, and how learning and development can help with the SOPs and working together. So how do you see this environment in the next 10 years?
Let me tell you. This is, I think, the most exciting forefront of hospitality. Hotels over the last century have remained almost stagnant, in my opinion. We've been doing things the same way. And as we've seen corporate brands kind of pop up and expand and grow, we've really understood the challenges of operating hotels the way that we have forever. I mean, and as we've rolled Yippee out and we've been able to watch hotels adopt this, we've also been able to meet with some amazing organizations that are out there and companies that are addressing how to train and develop your staff. And I'll do some shameless plugs here, but we're working very closely with a company called Levy, right? And what they do is like digital inspections with your phone. So they're going to plug in with Yippee and they'll be able to go through and just make visual scans, and the AI is going to be able to tell you, oh gosh, the water bottle's not there and the garbage wasn't emptied, the bed's not made correctly, and collect all that data and information, right? Another company is called Bytes, and what they're doing is point of view action training, right? So you can take a video of how something's doing, of how to, a process. This is how you make the Cuban sandwich. And it tells you, it creates the list right off of that. Just by watching that, AI is able to say, okay, you're going to take the bread, you're going to do this, you're going to do this with the steps, and then quizzes and all these things that naturally follow after it to make sure that we actually learn and develop it. As we look to the future, we have to understand that the future of hospitality, of learning and development, it is going to expand rapidly. And hotels have one of two choices. You keep doing what you're doing and getting the results that you have, or you adopt new technologies and procedures, and you grow and you see how far these things really can take you. Because it is real. As we look at what technology is happening, it's going to be an incredible world to learn and be a part of service and hospitality, because I think what we're going to see really soon is the fusion of technology more into the guest space, and also learning how to get better at helping staff feel successful and not just feel like a job, and feel a better opportunity to connect with guests. And I think that as we look to the world of hospitality in the future, we'll see a deeper connection, less technical or tasks to complete, like, oh gosh, just get through the movement, and more time to connect with guests and make meaningful hospitality. I mean, you look at, we'll get it right, unreasonable hospitality, the ability to know guests on a way deeper level than we've ever got to know them before, the ability to serve them in a way more personal and purposeful way, and then a way that we can have a better understanding of our operations, and we're not just waiting for feedback. We're proactively inspecting to make sure, no, this is the experience you need to have as a guest.
That's an awesome view for the future. I love that, because it is true, right? Hospitality is a human thing. I wrote on LinkedIn last week about how my grandfather, who was an accountant, and when he retired, he decided just to cook for families, and everyone remembers that experience because it was just a personal thing. Like you remember how people make you feel. This won't change. That's in genetics. Adam, we're getting to the last minute. So how can people get to talk to you?
Yeah, easy. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. Second, you can always search me and connect with us at Yippee. So it's yippee.io and YIPY.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to this podcast. We had a little technical glitch and lost Adam in the end, but you can connect with Adam via LinkedIn. His name is Adam Tuttle, Tuttle, and find more about Yippee on their website, www.wippy.io. That's YIPI.io. If you enjoyed the show, please consider sharing it with your friends and colleagues, and also check other episodes. We have produced 70 plus conversations with hospitality leaders, putting a lot of love and care, and I'm sure you'll find something you like here. Feel free to send me an email on mauricio@schillering.com. Mauricio is MAURICIO @schillering, SCHULERING.com. Sharing your thoughts, sharing your love. That's all for today. See you next time.